Hi, I'm Franco Herrero, and you're listening to the Functional Tennis Podcast.
Hi, welcome to the YouTube version of the Functional Tennis Podcast. This week I speak with strength and conditioning coach Franco Herrero. Franco is a young coach in his early 30s, but he comes from a wealth of experience. His parents were trainers, he played tennis, he knew some of the top players in Argentina, and his physical training quickly evolved. He became director of Evert Academy very early on in his 20s. He got to know loads of players there. He learned a lot and he's still learning to this day. But he talks about some of the players he's worked with, what he's learned along the way, how top players recover after tough 5-set matches. He also gives insight into movement for 8-year-olds going into their teenage years as well. And yeah, it's really interesting. You'll really enjoy it. He also touched on a comment Federer made during his Laver Cup retirement, where he says over the past 15 to 20 years, the best players have been the best movers, and that will continue. We had some interesting comments over on Instagram when we posted that, and he refines Federer's comment. He goes deeper on it. He really explains what Federer meant by that, and it's really interesting. He really gives best movers a definition, which is really interesting. So yeah, let me know what you think of the episode. And yeah, we've many more great episodes, by the way. We've had Eric Hernandez, the strength and conditioning coach of Daniel Medvedev. We've had Andy Murray's strength and conditioning coach, Matt Little. We've had Grigor Dimitrov's strength and conditioning coach, Sebastian Duran. We also had a great episode with a trainer who works with multiple players based out of Mortoglu, Lapo Beccarini. Really great episode. People really enjoyed that. So check them out. Any questions? I'm here to help, but really hope you enjoy this episode and get something from it. Bye. Hi, Franco. Welcome to the Functional Tennis Podcast. How are you?
Thanks, Fabio. All good, really good.
Great to have you on. I came across you earlier this year where you were posting some great high quality videos of you training with Tommy Paul. And I thought, wow, these videos are great. They're really perfect for functional tennis. And it was amazing. And then I found out who your girlfriend is, who I previously worked with her. She used to send me videos from other tennis people she worked with. I was like, this is great. So yeah, tell me, how is life? Where are you based? And then we'll talk a bit more about your upbringing and where you're from and who you're working with. But how's life right now?
Everything is great. Of course, it makes it easy with the content. When you have a girlfriend that works on social media management, she's been super helpful. So, and we love, the content that you post in functional tennis. Definitely a follower for the last many years, of the content that you put out there. So, um, when you contact me about like sharing some content together and stuff, I mean, I loved it. It was super fun. Regarding myself, I'm based in Boca Raton, Florida. I've been here since 2014. I moved straight from Argentina, and I worked. I mean, I work based. I use as my base the Ever Tennis Academy, which is based. It's Chris Evert Academy. Is based here in Florida, Boca Raton, and I used to work there, and like for 4 years, and right now, I'm working independently, but I use their facility to work with my players, pros and juniors.
And right now, who you're working with? I know you're working with Tommy Paul. Are you working with Sophia Cannon also?
Yes, I mean, pros, I'm working with Tommy and Sonia. Also, I've been working during the past years with Renata Sarasua from Mexico. And I have some guys like playing on the Challenger Tour, like Alex Rybakov. And then I have a lot of juniors that I really actually enjoy working with. Always we talk about the pros and stuff, but I also really enjoy all the development stages and stuff like that. I work with juniors since I moved to the States and stuff, so I do a little bit of everything.
Nice. And I did text you. It was a Friday. I was like, "Are you in London?" Uh, Tell me, could you have went to London?
That was a painful one because, of course, as you know, Tommy went there as a sub for Laver Cup, and we're supposed to use it as a training week since he wasn't going to be playing. We are okay. Let's do use it as a training week because then Tommy was going to stay like 6 weeks straight in Europe playing tournaments. But then we decided to pull off the first two so we could train, 2 weeks and then go to the last four tournaments of the year. And that's why I didn't go because if Hugh had played those first two tournaments, I was probably going to go so we could do like a training week. And but then when we decided to change that, I decided to stay here. Anyways, we were going to be training these 2 weeks. And then Roger came out with the news that he was retired. I was like, heartbroken. But it's okay. I mean, I saw it on TV. I enjoyed the whole event on TV, and I've been in contact with Tommy, and everything's been amazing. Apparently, I mean, really nice.
And just while we're talking about Roger here, while it's so close to his retirement, for you, what did he mean as a player for you growing up?
I mean, as a player, I enjoyed the earlier. I was thinking about that. The amount of hours that we've spent. All of us like watching Roger, like entertaining us. It's like we all have spent. Anybody that loves tennis has spent like so many hours just being entertained by Roger, just on the TV. Of course, a lot of people has been lucky to see him live. On court. I saw him actually in a very nice match here with the Kyrgios in Miami, and I don't know. He's the one that changed the game. He's the one that created this new era. Then there is all these arguments regarding who's the goat and stuff like that, which I don't get involved. I mean, I'm a big Roger fan. I'm a big fan of Rafa too and Nole. But definitely, he's the one that changed the era, and he's the one that the other two in this case, they've been trying to catch up with, and he's been their person to follow. So so I think he was huge for tennis. Definitely, he was like a game changer. So.
Definitely. And we're recording this the morning after the Team World victory. Have you been speaking to any of the Team World members this morning?
Yeah, I just got a message from Tommy actually telling me that he's gonna work out today, asking me what he
Is
has
it,
to do.
was there a few beers last night?
Yes, so I guess like I mean it's like 3 4 p.m. right now over there, so probably he's recovering from it. Uh, but I mean it's good. I mean I'm sure they celebrated well. They had some fun yesterday night. I think it was an amazing event. How everything went. A lot of like epic matches, huh? Like
Yeah.
a lot of fun matches, like a lot of tension. Yesterday, the one from Tiafo and Tsitsipas, unreal. The surprise from Felix. I think it was a great Laver Cup for Team World in general.
It was. And it just showed that you could lose the first set and you're still in the chance. So, like a lot of times the guys lost the first set and they were the ones who won the match. So, yeah, definitely the level was great. And I found the courts a bit too slow. It's a bit frustratingly slow.
Yeah, I heard actually Tommy's been playing like on indoor courts the last 2 weeks, and both times they've been slow. One was he was playing Davis Cup last week, and now this week, it was Laver Cup, and he did mention the fact that the courts were kind of like a very, very slow. But probably, for the people, it makes it more entertaining because it makes the points longer. You gotta work to hit through the R player for a longer period of time, and it makes bigger, longer rallies. So for the spectators, probably it's fun.
It was good. I felt bad for Tsitsipas yesterday. I know he got off to a bad start, but he was trying to beat the crap out of the ball and take it so early, and he played well, and sometimes you don't win playing well, but it was
Yeah.
exciting. But look, let's throw it back to the early days. You grew up in Argentina. You were a tennis player. Your parents owned a gym there, as
Yeah.
far as I know. What was your tennis career like?
I mean, I was a normal player. I think I played a lot until I was like 12. I started playing when I was 5, and I played a lot until I was like 12, 13. I used to play like every day, train every day. I was really into it. I think I was a decent player back then. And then after that, I started taking it more kind of like as a hobby. Like I would like train like 2 to 3 times a week. Since I was 12 until I was like probably 17, 18. And then when I was 17, I stopped playing. When I finished like high school, I stopped playing. As you mentioned, I'm from Bahia Blanca. It's a small city in the south of Buenos Aires province.
Okay.
It's where Guido Pella is from, for example, tennis.
Okay.
So, um, I mean, I grew up there. A lot of playing at the club and stuff like that. So, I played some national tournaments. Never any international events. But definitely, I like the game. I really enjoy playing the game, and I like the game. And as you mentioned, I have a strength and conditioning background because both of my parents are gym owners in Argentina, my city. So I felt like then I went to college and I studied like physical education, and that's when I tried to put both things together, kind of like my passion for strength and conditioning with my passion for tennis. That is a sport that I done my whole life and that I have the most knowledge about. I mean.
Mm.
And since then, to be honest, I haven't played much. I play here and there, so once in a while, like Tommy would ask me to hit, or one of my players would like ask me to hit, and we would hit some balls. With Tommy's coach, with Brad Stein, we hit a few times, but I don't play much, to be honest. I'm around it all the time, but I
Yeah.
don't play much.
You're too busy working. And going back to your age back in Argentina, do we know any similar players from your age group or any of them still on the tour?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, in Argentina, a little older than me was Guido Pella, that is from my city, from Bahia Blanca. But then probably the most known one right now is Schwarzman. You know, Schwarzman is
Yeah.
91, 91, so definitely, I mean, share some tournaments.
Okay.
Like we used to cross each other, you know, during the tournaments, national tournaments and stuff. Then Andreossi is from my Facu Lugones is actually my age. Like he's been on the podcast, on the Functional Tennis podcast.
Oh, yes.
Coach Facundo Lugones.
Yeah. Yeah. Only a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. I heard it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of players, you know, 91, 92, like that, and 90s that I play with, they're still up there. They're still playing.
And what was Schwartzman like as a young 12-year-old?
Man, the guy, like, he was like same as now, but I think that, you know, he used to, of course, he was way better than me. As I mentioned, I was more like a casual tennis player, and but I would see him playing the tournaments at my city, and I would play them too, but at a different level, of course. And he used to be like, I mean, he used to run a lot, make a lot of balls. You know, I think that he has improved his game so much. He has worked on his game all around so much. He has the ability now, you know, to take time away of the ball. Like he used to run a lot, you know, see the court very linear in the past, and now you can see him, you know, like cutting angles, taking time away from his opponents. He doesn't have, you know, like huge shots. But I think that he creates a lot of damage by trying to take time away all the time. You know, like using his legs. He's a great mover. He's a great mover. So he uses that, you know, to try to be aggressive on the way he can, and of course he counterattacks very well. So I think that he has changed his game style a lot since he was young to what he is now, and that's what gave him the chance to get to the position where he's right now. You know, like
Yeah.
top 20 right now, but he got to be top 10. So
I could imagine being a nightmare junior, every ball coming back, everyone, loopy balls, and he was that guy.
yeah, absolutely.
So tell me, so obviously you went to college. Did you work? What happened? How did you combine tennis and the strength and conditioning work, and how did you move forward from there?
Well, so I went to college in Argentina, and during my college times, I got hired by a couple tennis clubs to do because they knew I had the knowledge, you know, on tennis because I played it, and I was studying physical education, and I did like a strength and conditioning certification when I was on my last year of high school. So a couple like tennis clubs, they hired me. The professor, the one that used to be my tennis coach since I was young, hired me to run the strength and conditioning and from my own club, the club where I grew up. So that was
Nice.
my first job as a strength and conditioning coach was in Mar del Plata. Even before that, it was in a city that is close to my city, and I got hired in the club where Guillermo Vilas grew up, the Club Náutico.
Okay.
So it's a nice club. It has like usually they play the South American tournaments over there, the COSAT. It's a beautiful club, and I used to run for a year. I did the strength and conditioning there. Then I moved back to my city, and that's when I got hired by my own club, the club where I grew up, and I was used to run the strength and conditioning there. Then, as my career, you know, my physical education career keep moving forward, I continued to work there, and I started working on my parents' gym, you know, and trying to be more involved into the strength area. I also used to do some spinning lessons to do some money, you know, to go out on the weekends, and then
What's that app called? What's that app called they all use now, where all the instructors are making load of money? It's big in the States. What's that called?
uh,
Peloton. Peloton.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I used to do like peloton on my own. So yeah, I mean, and then once I was done with college, actually, it's a funny story. I mean, at some point in 2014, Guido Pella, that is the best player in our city, and he's a big friend of mine. My dad used to be our strength and condition. We used to do strength and conditioning with him and his sister all together. Um, he was kind of in a moment where he decided to take a break from playing and stuff like that, and he went back to my city. And when he did that, we started kind of like working out together. And he started like asking me if I could work with him and stuff. So we started little by little, and he started getting back into tennis. But I was already working on my visa for for Ever Tennis Academy. So okay, let's do it until I get my visa. Once I get my visa, I get going. So I worked with Guido for 4 years, for 4 months, sorry. And that was probably my first like job as a strength and conditioning coach with a professional tennis player, which was a really cool experience. And it was really nice that it was with someone that I consider a friend. um, then once my papers came out, my visa situation got solved and stuff. My work visa, I moved to the States, and I started working at the Ever Tennis Academy as an assistant for who used to be the strength and conditioning director.
Why did you choose the Everett Academy? Any specific reason?
Yes, actually, I skipped one part of the story. In 2013, in between my third and fourth year of college, a friend of mine is the men's director at the Ever Tennis Academy. He's a big friend of mine called Reginaldo Moralejo. He's been in tennis for many, many years. And he told me that they were looking for an intern, for strength and conditioning. And I was like, okay, I got these 3 months, like my summertime, and I could go there, and help and see and kind of like shadow, and stuff like that. So I did that for 3 months, and I established a great relationship with everybody around the Ever Tennis Academy. The person, I mean, of course, Chris is there, but the one kind of like running more is John, his brother, and he was great to me. So and they wanted me to stay back then, but I had to finish college, so I decided to go back to Argentina, finish college. And then they actually, as I was in Argentina, they say, "Hey, we're still interested in you coming in." And so I decided to come back. I mean, I had such a good time. I mean, I think it's a beautiful place. It's a very, like, Boca Raton itself is beautiful. The academy, it's a nice environment. It's a very nice tennis academy. And everybody around it, I had like very good friends on it. So I was like, why not, and since then I've been actually with them like for many, many years. I mean, right now I'm not working for them, but I still, go there every day, and I really enjoy spending my time in there. Um, so that is the reason. And then I became assistant, and after 1 year of being the assistant there in strength and conditioning, the director, John Mark Jenkins, that is the person that brought me in, a very nice guy, American. He decided he was there for 12, 13 years, something like that. So he decided to retire, to move into doing something else. And I took they offered me the position as director, and I took it. And I was actually super young. It was really nice because John, like really trusted me, and I knew the program really well, and he gave me a huge opportunity for my career, becoming director of such a nice place. So I'm always very grateful to that. And I worked there for 4 years as their director. I really enjoyed to work with players from all over the world, a lot of different places. Um, yeah, I mean, younger players, like kids from 8, 9, 10 years old, where you really have
Yeah.
to work on the foundation, to players of 17 that are probably playing ITFs and stuff like that. So that was a great stage for me, to be honest. I mean, I really, really enjoyed doing that.
Nice. And we're gonna just pause the story for a sec there. You just mentioned 7, 8 year olds foundations. Just I know it's easier to do on video on a court, but over this audio format, this is on video, by the way. It'll be on YouTube, but most of our listeners on audio. What's important for 7, 8 year olds to do as a foundation from a strength and condition or from a performance element?
It's a great question. Actually, I work nowadays, with the kids of that age, and to me, the most important thing at that age is to experience the biggest amount of sports possible. And I know, sometimes for parents, mainly in tennis, you can see that there's a lot of specificity on very early stages. The parents want them to specialize into tennis in very early stages. But I think that probably my biggest recommendation at that stage, and even until they're like 12 years old, 13 years old, is to try to bring them out and make them experience different sports. Like this is the way I'm going to put it. I work nowadays with a 7-year-old kid, and I would consider his dad a friend of mine right now, by now, and he asked me, "Hey, Franco, like Benny is ready to start. What do you think we should start with? And stuff like that." I was like, "Man, if you want to bring him once a week, I will do once a week for him for 30, 45 minutes where we work mainly, we try to work on coordination, dynamic balance, that kind of thing, like try to keep it fun and stuff. But I would like try to bring him into other sports. And we're talking that for me, like financially, it will represent a better situation, where I could probably potentially make
Yes.
more money. But if I have to be honest, I don't think it's the best for him. I think that the best for him to, because you want to have the biggest amount of motor skills possible. The more experiences that you're like exposed to when you're a kid, the better you're going to be at solving situations. And sports is a great way of finding yourself in different situations and having to solve them. Uh, a big example of this, and that I always give, is Tommy. Tommy, if you ask him since his early stages, like I didn't even know him back then, but when you ask him, he will tell you that I think it was his father-in-law back then. He used to run like a multi-sports facility or something like that, and basically he would be like in there all day, playing every sports. And nowadays, when you see Tommy, I mean, you give Tommy a basketball, he knows how to play. You give him a football, he can play. You give him a baseball bat, he's gonna bat, he's gonna throw well, he's gonna run well. He has good running mechanics. He has and everything because when he was young, he was exposed to so many sports. You know, so my biggest recommendation for parents is to. I know it's tempting, to go for specificity, and it's even usually when you put the drills out there and stuff like that, and they see like footwork specific drills and stuff like that, it's very tempting to say, "Oh, I'm gonna get them into that," but there is another stage that comes later that is good for that. I think that in an early stage, my biggest recommendation would be that.
So, as a 7 or 8 year old, how much tennis should they be playing a week? You talk about one training session with you a week, working off footwork and dynamic stuff, but actually on the court hitting. How much should these kids be? Sorry, how many hours should be spent on court? It's a question we get all the time.
Look, I think that it's a question that people get all the time because it's clear that in many situations there is kind of like a little bit of an abuse of time on court. Like the other day I got a text from a parent like saying that his 5-year-old was playing 2 hours a day of tennis a day. So you're like, I don't know, man. Like, so if they play like 3 times a week for an hour and a half, if you want to do a different split, it doesn't matter the split. If you want to do like every day for an hour or whatever you want to do, it's fine. But definitely, like I would try to not. I've used for two situations. Number one, for the length of your kid's career, tennis is such a repetitive sport and there is such a high volume of a certain movements that the body is not ready for it. I mean, the body is not ready to swing a 250-gram racket. I don't know how the juniors racket are, but the adults is
Yeah.
like 350 or something like that. But yeah, you cannot be swinging that, every day for 2 hours, repetitive. And for like if they start at 5 years old, and we're talking that, they're gonna play all the way to 30, 35, whatever it is. It's they're gonna get hurt. So and it's important for them also mentally, to not get like burned out. You don't want them to get burned out from the sport. It's such an individual sport, and you spend so much time alone out there and stuff like that you don't want them to get tired of it. So basically, trying to build up that time gradually through the years, I think it's a key. Then how much more or less, we can argue like every day. One of us is going to say one thing, another one is going to say as different. We can be talking
Yeah.
all day, but there is definitely, sometimes an abuse on the time that the kids spend on court, and that brings like injury and burnouts and stuff like that. That is not necessary. They can be exposed to other sports, as I mentioned before. They play 3 times a week, but then the 2 times they're doing like football one day and basketball one day, and then one day they do a little like like a little fitness with their trainer or whatever it is. That's fine.
Yeah, that's right. It's getting a healthy mix, which is tougher. Sometimes the parents just want to get them on court all the time. But okay, so I cut you off. So we're going to go next to, so you start in Everett, you become a very young director of the strength program, which is great. And what happens moving forward then?
Well, as you mentioned, I was really young, so it was a great opportunity for me. I was like 24, 23, 24, something like that. Um, so I worked there for 4 years as director, and as I was there, I started kind of like mixing in and starting knowing more professional players and getting more. Like I was around the USTA. The USTA, the National Tennis, and used to be at the academy too. The academy used to have like a part of the USTA
Okay.
basically attached to it. So I had the chance to see how those juniors, because of course I was young and I was like, and I'm still learning all the time, and I love learning. And there were some great strength and conditioning coaches that nowadays they're even my friends, like Gabriel Echeverria, that is now running Tennis Australia. He's in Tennis Australia
Okay.
strength and conditioning, but he used to be at USTA. So I would like try to learn, as much as I could from them because they were developing all these kids. For example, Tommy. Tommy grew up at the USTA here in Boca Raton with Diego Moyano as his coach, and we gave us his strength and conditioning coach, Tommy, Riley, Rybakov, that now works with me too. Francis used to be around. So, it was an unbelievable stage for me to work at the academy, but at the same time to continue, learning from all the people
Yeah.
that was around me. From, on that case, from those people developing juniors, but then there was a lot of, like pros stopping by. So I had the chance to see a lot more, how the pros used to work and stuff like that. And then at some point in 2015, a friend of mine, Claudio Galasso, that used to be Nalbandian's fitness coach, he was working with Monica Puig. He started working with Monica Puig, with Ignacio Todero, that used to be her coach. And they invited me to join the project, but I was working at Everett, so I could do it only on a part-time base. Where when Claudio couldn't travel to do certain training weeks, I would take care
Mm.
of Monica's fitness. So let's say like 6 weeks a year, seven. I don't remember exactly how many. And that's how I started working with pros here in the States, with Monica part time from 2015 all the way to 2017, 2018, when I left the academy. Actually, I started working full time with her.
And when did she win the Olympics?
Olympics were in 2016, I think.
Okay, you were part of that,
I
so
was kind of part of that. I'm like part of that because
ah,
her strength and conditioning was Claudio, and he did an unbelievable job. I mean, a fantastic job. I was like working under him, and he's actually one of my other, let's say, mentors. The one of the people that I look up to,
okay.
and I learned a lot working with him. Nowadays, we're huge friends, and we work together in many cases. Like right now, for example, whenever I need help with Sonia, that I'm not around, he takes care of Sonia. So we work
Okay.
together in different stages. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of part of it. Part time working with her. I mean, I was involved. So yeah, I mean, it was really nice. It was a really nice experience. I remember I did like the training blog like before she went to DC. I think there she goes to DC and she has another tournament and she goes Florianopolis, and then from there she goes to the Olympics. And it was really nice. I mean, it was actually super cool when the guys came back and they told me the whole experience, and it's a beautiful
That's
moment.
brilliant. That and tell me, is it you call her Sonia? I said Sophia. Which is the one she likes being called?
I call her Sonia. I think, but
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I said
yeah.
Sophia.
But
Yeah,
either way, it's fine. I think.
that's crazy. That's crazy. So, when did you move on? So from Everett, as in move out of the director position and do more your own
So yeah,
freelance
I mean,
work?
I was, as I mentioned, I love my experience at Everett, but I was, 27, 28 years then, and this opportunity to go full time into the tour with Monica came up, and I thought it was a great moment for me, at that stage of my life to get into the traveling, like going around doing the tour and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that is the reason why I decided to left. And I work with Monica. Like we work full time for a couple months, like probably like 7, 8 months. I don't remember exactly. I don't recall, but I went like fully full time with her, like traveling. Going to the tournament. It was my first experience going to all the tournaments. Being around the whole environment. So I really enjoyed, and actually was with friends of mine. I mean, with her coach is a big friend of mine, Nacho Todero, and her physio Thomas. So we had a beautiful team. We had a great time. Actually, we still get along. We meet with them for barbecues all the time. Monica invited me to her wedding now in November. Uh,
Nice.
so and we were talking like in US Open now, for example, we met for a coffee. We had a great relationship. So it was a great time. It was a great time. Like, that was my first experience, traveling all over, and I really, really enjoyed. Um,
Did you learn a lot being on the road, or is all the learning done back at
no,
base?
I learned a lot. I mean, I'm still learning a lot all the time. I always say that I try to go out there and see what everybody's doing, so I can get different things. I think, as I mentioned, a lot of players used to stop by here at Everton, stuff like that, and I got a lot of what they do during their training blocks. But I've never, been into the tournament scenario, like how to work during the tournament,
Yeah.
how to when to do the warm up, how long before, like how does the day start with the physio treatment, then you go into the warm up with the trainer, and then. All the stuff from the tournaments, the times and stuff, you don't know it because I've never been there. I mean, I used to talk with friends that were fitness coaches of mine. And I would be like, hey, dude, how you do this? How you do that? Done it.
Yeah.
So it was a whole new experience for me, and I really really enjoyed it. But definitely, I try to keep an eye always on what other fitness coaches were doing, and especially the ones that I was close to. I would constantly be asking them and trying to learn from them.
Nice. And so, what happened after the gig with
So after
Monica?
Monica, we stopped in 2019, like February 2019, and basically I started working independently. I decided, that I didn't want because with Monica I have exclusiveness. It was so I was like full time with her, and I decided that I wanted to do the same, but on a different way. In a way where I was kind of like independent, so I could be whoever I wanted
Yeah.
and whenever I wanted. And I really, I've been really enjoying that, to be honest, like working independently. And since then, in 2019, I started working with Tommy. Like middle of the year, my friend Gabe Echeverria, that used to work for USTA, he moved to Tennis Australia, and Tommy was working with Diego Moyano, his coach, and he was starting to consider, setting up his own team, like because he wasn't still part of the USTA program, and.
Okay.
So they called me in, to start working with Tommy, and that's how I started. And we started working together, and it was really nice. I mean, Tommy was like 140, 150 in the world, something like that back then. I mean, he was very close to breaking top 100 many times. Like he had like some injuries and different things. And yeah, so we started working together. Then at the end of the year, he hires Brad Stein, like towards the end of the year, and he finishes the year like 80 in the world, I think, something like that. He breaks top 100, he gets to 80 in the world, he wins some challengers, he was playing like great tennis level. And at the same time that I was working with Tommy, I was starting to work with these different, like juniors here in the area. I also did some work with Genie Bouchard, with Jorge Todero for a few months,
Okay.
like, and that was super fun too. Um, Also helped Margarita Gasparian for a few weeks. That was with Carlos Martinez back then. And so, yeah, I mean, I started working independently, on my own. And I did that 2019. I finished the year with Tommy and all these juniors. Um, and then in 2020, I got a job offer in Miami with Franco Davina and Patricia Taravini that they were working. We had like a
Okay.
group of players, and we got like Kyle Edmund, Anna Kalinskaya, Emilio Gomez, JC Aragon, Lourdes Carlet. So that was a great experience. I started going to Miami back and forth from Boca Raton. For those that don't know, it's like hour and a half commute at least. So did that during all 2020. It was a great experience. I had a lot of fun. We had a very nice group of players that and the good thing, the fun thing is that they were all players in different levels, because some of them were in ATP WTA tour, but some of them were playing like challengers or even futures. So
Yeah.
it was really fun, to work with players of different levels, men's, women's, and that's what I did during the whole 2020. And then that's when the pandemic, hit, and I had to stay more in Boca. I also, was the commute, to be honest, was killing me. It was
Killing it.
killing me. So it was to the point I was okay. Either I move to Miami or I stay in Boca, and I really, really like Boca. So I decided to stay here 2021. And Tommy contacted Tommy knew that when he realized that I was gonna be in Boca, he was like, "Man, we gotta get back to work together." And of course, so
Nice. And you just mentioned back in 2019, Tommy Paul got injured a lot, couldn't break top 100. Looking back, did he change any of his training to help him not get injured? Did something change, or he just stopped
no,
getting
no, no.
injured?
Of course, he did a lot of adjustments. He did a lot of adjustments. Like Gabe, the guy that he used to work with in UCA, Gabe Echeverria, they had to deal, with a few things that were tough, like an elbow injury that actually he kind of like still, like here and there struggles with. It comes and goes. A little, it's kind of like a chronic thing. And then his knee, he had a very big issue in his knee, which actually he was supposed to be he was very close to the surgery there, and through a lot of adjustments and work that they did with Gabe, they were able to save it and not have to do it. So that was a big, like a big win.
Yeah,
And then when I came in, as I was such a good friend of Gabe, the good thing is that the transition was super easy, and I was like, okay, what are you guys doing? Sometimes people they tend to take a job and like they don't have that relationship probably with the fitness coach before, so you kind of like come in and you start doing your own
mm,
thing, the way. And here I try to make things smooth and try to continue working on the same line that Gabe was doing, because they were having such a good results and Tommy was starting to look like healthy and looking really good. So I try to continue building on the same line. And yeah, and during the last 3 years, I mean, it's been great. He still has, as I mentioned, like his little tweaks here and there that we deal with. But
but surely every sorry to cut you off. Every player deals with something. There's no player out there that is
oh no,
100% healthy.
absolutely. I mean, it's as I mentioned before when we were talking about kids. This is such a repetitive sport. It's such a high volume of movements. And also there is so much change of direction, and it's so aggressive on the joints in general that injury is
Yeah.
part of the game. You got to try to prevent it. And I think nowadays one of the big changes in the last years is that the players they've been able to extend their careers way longer through all these techniques and things that they do with their physios, with their fitness coaches and stuff like that. And that has been one of the big changes on the game, I think, on the last years.
Yeah, it seems to be from what I see, a lot of players they'll show up, they get up in the morning, have their breakfast, then they'll get the osteopath in or the chiropractor, sorry, to check mobility, and they're like, yeah, today you're okay, or this is a bit tight, so let's work on that. Then they do the warm up, and then they do some more work with you on court to warm up the feet and other stuff, and then they hit balls. It's like 3 hours work has gone into before they actually hit a ball. And then there's the stuff after. So I was laughing the other night at when I saw Andy Murray. He had a tough match on Friday night, and then obviously Federer was back on court straight away after playing the doubles. And I saw Andy there, and I was like, he really needs to do his cool down. He must have done a cool down tonight. Like he's going to be
Yeah,
hurting
yeah,
tomorrow.
no, no, definitely there is a lot. Like people just sees, of course, the final product that is the player on court, but before that, there is a lot of work put by with the physios, as you mentioned. Usually they start with a little like physio treatment, probably not a long. Then they go through a lot of like soft tissue work with the fitness coach. Then anything that has to do with mobility, trying to work on the mobility and the ranges of motion, some activation with some prehabs, you try to fit in some maintenance work with some prehabs, core work, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Then, you have, as you mentioned, activation with some sort of warm up, dynamic warm up, and then they hit and a little time, and then you got a little warm up, like 10-15 minute warm up before they jump onto the match, and that's what people see. And then after the match, it comes all the recovery process.
It's crazy. And so I remember texting you during the Tommy Paul, the first round US Open match this year was 5 sets against Zapalas. Was it, I have it here, Zapada Morales. That was 5 sets. And then next round he goes 5 sets with Corda. I'm like, what do you, how's,
And then
wait,
he won
say that
five
again.
sets
I
with
missed
Rude,
that.
so it was three.
Yeah, it was 3-5. Now the fifth set against Rude was a love set. He must have been just totally extended
It
by
was
then,
tough. I
was
mean,
he?
of course, and that's the part that comes after the match. A lot of work with the physio. I think well, Tommy now is working with a very good physio with Sebastian. They just started working together and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's long hours. Like sometimes it was like 1 in the morning and we were still working in the room, like Seba was working on Tommy's body. Uh, and you have everything that comes after the match for recovery. There is, the physio treatment, anything that has to do with nutrition, supplementation, sleep, all those little things, that they prepare you for the next battle, for the next match.
Just maybe break it down for us. Let's say you played those five setters, you come off late at night. What's the actual run of events between food, press conference, ice bath, cryotherapy, massages, maybe more food? How did it happen? Let's
Yeah,
say
I mean, usually
at
what
the
we would do
Open.
is right after the match, Tommy will hop. Like, some players like hopping on a bike, some players don't. I'm kind of like, if it is part of their routine, I'm fine with it. They try to cool down on the bike slowly for a few minutes. Then Seba the physio will stretch him out, like a short stretch, because then they do the most of the work later, but a 10-15 minute stretch right there at the club. Then, trying to make him hop into the ice bath, trying to, some ice bath or contrast therapy and stuff like that. Then you have to do everything that is related, like press conference and stuff like that. Usually, right after the match, we try while he's doing the cool down and stuff like that to give him like a supplement, like a recovery shake. After that,
Yeah.
everything that has to do with nutrition, trying to eat well, get a good meal, and then we'll go into the hotel and do everything that was the physio treatment. They will spend like an hour on the table, with Seba. And in the meantime, of course, trying to get more food, supplements if it is necessary. Here and there, we'll have a little beer, to to try to relax. Uh, no, no, he, he,
Not
he, he
him, not
probably
him.
has
You,
beer too. Yeah, yeah, he has a beer.
yeah.
One,
Okay.
I mean, one to celebrate the victory. So the next day, the good thing on the slams is that
Nice.
you have that intermediate day that allows you to continue, putting, like, trying to get more food, in, and trying to use it as a recovery day. Probably we'll do like a little like maintenance work with some prehab score, stuff like that. But yeah, it's more like a recovery day, mainly on the slams because it's where you wanna peak. You don't wanna create any fatigue.
Nice. And yeah, it's crazy, like all those hours and trying to control the fatigue and your mental decision goes down. And so how do you off court, or sorry, well, off, not with a racket in your hands, but how do you work with fitness and making sure that these players can last as long as possible on the court? I know we often forget. I think the normal athlete or the unprofessional or just the amateur tends to use fitness as a unfittest in January, fittest in December, then they start again. But professional athletes, it's a compound. So it's compound over 20 years, and it's this fitness and fitness and fitness. But what do you do that can help improve their endurance in a
I
match?
mean, tennis is a complicated. It's actually a long question, but tennis is, a complicated sport in terms of, there is no pretty much preseason. The preseasons with tennis players is super short. I mean, usually you have at the most 4 weeks nowadays. With how tight the schedule is. It's an all year round sport. So that makes it very complicated compared to other sports, where you have an off season, you have a pre-season, then they compete, then you have like some time off. No, here it doesn't happen.
Hmm.
So, on the books it says that the ideal is to do certain things, but then when you get into tennis, you realize that you gotta throw the books and do something different. So basically, I think you try to work, as you mentioned, as a compound thing, like year to year. Like trying to basically like using the preseason the best way you can. Trying to build up on the preseason, like really load up in terms of fitness there. But honestly and physiologically, the amount of the increase, on performance that you can have on a preseason of 3-4 weeks, it's not that high. It's not like crazy. Oh yeah, you're here and now you're gonna be here. No, that doesn't happen. You're gonna get
Yeah.
better. Yes, of course you're gonna get better, but I think it's more. It's we say accumulation. Yeah, like a loading. Like using that and then
Yes.
using the training blocks. Every time you have a little training block of 2 weeks, like for example, they will go to Australia, they spend 3 weeks there. Then they come back, they got like another 2 3 weeks, you work there. And so being able to use those training weeks, to put some work, and through the years to, improve the fitness of the person. And of course, there's a very important stage that is during juniors, because during juniors the schedule is not shouldn't be as loaded as it is during pros. Shouldn't be, because it happens a lot that it is. Because you need to have these development stages where you have, good periods of time where you can, like improve and develop their fitness and their tennis. Because then when they get to pro, they won't have that. I mean, you pretty much don't have that. So juniors is the stage where you should be able to use, you have more time to develop both areas. But that being said, I mean, basically you try to go like that. And also it's very important, it's tough, but it's very important that when the player loses, to get them back to work right away. Because, for example, if you go to the first round of the year and your player loses on Monday, Tuesday, like first round or second, you have at least like 3 4 weeks where you can load. And that load that you're able to put there is going to allow
Yeah.
you for the fitness, as you mentioned, not to be dropping through the season. You want to, you finish a training block here, and probably, yeah, by the end of 3 4 weeks, their fitness level might go a little down, but you don't want it to go crazy down where you have to start building again. So you can start building up, like that constantly, and continue building their fitness. Is that clear?
It's like yeah, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah,
Two
I know.
steps
And the
forward, one
more you
step
can do,
back.
of maintenance, whenever
Yeah.
you find those, moments through the year that you can maintain, I think that is the key, is being very disciplined. And as soon as they're done, back to work, and on the fitness, like back to work, all the time. So you're not dropping through the year, and you can compete all year round, being in a good physical condition.
Nice. No, no, that makes a lot of sense. I know it's a tough question to answer. There's a lot going on. There's not a one sentence answer. But just look another at like a lot of 14, 15, 16-year-olds we know. What advice do you have for those from a performance point of
For,
view?
sorry, for 15.
For, let's say, the best in countries, the 14, 15, 16-year-olds, what's important for those
Well,
guys
at
and
that
girls to
stage,
be
it's a
working
great
on?
stage. We mentioned, that at 7, 8, 9, 10, to be around like different sports to me was key. Also, being around different sports
Yeah.
until you're 14, 15, you can always develop it. Doesn't matter which stage of your life you are, but it's a very sensitive stage to develop your VO2 max, and your aerobic capacity. It's a very sensitive, good stage. So
Okay.
until they're 15, it's really good to develop that. And the way I would do is, I'm not going to take a 10-year-old kid and start making them do sprints, or something like crazy. But through different activities, like fun activities, and through different playing different sports and stuff like that, I would try to stimulate as much as I can. When they get to like 11, 12, you can start working. I mean, you all the stage, you focus on the coordination and stuff. But when they get to that stage, they can start working a little bit on the strength area. I think it's a great area to continue stimulating, as I mentioned, the capacity, the good running mechanics. I think a lot of kids have, like flaws on their running mechanics and stuff like that. And it's a great stage to develop and to promote that. The right, movement patterns. So basically, when I talk about strength in kids, I'm looking into their movement patterns, the pushing movement, the pulling movement, the squatting movement, their hinging movement. A lot of parents, when you talk about strength, there is a lot of myths, behind it, regarding, strength in kids, strength training kids. And there is absolutely zero risk. I would be way more afraid of my kid playing 2 hours a day of tennis where he's repeating like an overhead motion than having my kid, doing a lightweight exercise with the right pattern on a very controlled environment. So, when you get to 12, 13, 14, you should be stimulating and working on the correct patterns of movement on every sense. So when you get to the stages that you're talking about, 14, 15, 16, where there is kind of like a hormone peak and hormone peaks and stuff like that, they can start moving weights, and it's only about increasing load. Because if the person has the right movement patterns, then it's only building, like increasing the amount of weight that they move. Now, if when they were like 12, 13,
Yeah.
14, you did not put the work on their technique or the movement patterns, then you're going to have to put it when they're 15, 16. And you won't be able, and you're going to load, but you can load on an unsafe way. Instead, if you did it there, then you can, just increase weight. So I think that, replying your question, 14, 15,
No,
16, great stage to start working, on this, on starting to move loads, little by little heavier, on starting to work on their power, like trying to work on their power, trying to work on their strength, starting to work more on like aerobic work, and aerobic capacity work and stuff like that. But you can start working on the track, on with different type of intervals and stuff like that, closer to what is going to be on the future stages.
nice. No, I think what you said there makes a lot of sense. We had Matt Little, Andy Murray's long-term coach, on the show a long time ago now, but he said the exact same thing. It said about to get the technique right. It's not about the heavy, just very little weight, but technique, and then they come into that age where they know how to do it, increase the load slowly, and it's a lot
It
of a
makes the
smoother
job so much
transition.
easier for you. I mean, a pulling movement. I mean, a row is a row. It doesn't matter if it is with a band, with the rope. It doesn't matter if it is with a dumbbell. It doesn't matter if it is with a barbell or cable, whatever it is. So you can start with a light band, but then if that rowing movement is correct, then you're going to be able to transfer it to anything you want to do. You're going to transfer it to a 50-pound dumbbell. That's one day.
Nice.
The movement has to be right,
Yeah.
because if when
Well,
they're
yeah.
rowing, even if it is with a band, and that's the problem, they're rolling their shoulders forward, the case, which happens a lot. You know what I mean? Then it's unsafe anyway. I mean, they're not gonna get hurt. Most likely they won't get hurt. But then when you get to a stage where you want to load it up, then the rowing movement, it's already not great. So you have to take a step back and start over. So I think that is probably one of the keys. Then also, 12, 13, 14, clean up their footwork, like trying to, we talk about the sports, the multi sports, but then 12, 13, 14, trying to, start working on the right footwork patterns. I think, so when they get to the stages where they start competing more and more, like 15, 16, their technique, their footwork technique is already good, and that's all the specific work, with medicine
It's
ball,
tough.
with Bungie, with Natalie, just shadowing, like trying to clean up the movement as much as you can. The other day, Fed said something interesting. He said that the best players were the best movers, and and
I did post. I did. I'm cutting in it. I did post that. I put up the video on functional tennis, and some people were like, "Oh, that's crap," because there's so Diminoir is the best mover, and why is he not the best player? All this start coming up,
yeah,
even though he is one of the best players in the world. But they start. It was just. It was quite an interesting discussion going on. But ultimately, you're
that's an
right. The best
interesting topic
movers are the
because
best players.
like I think that like a player like Deminor, for example, I'm gonna put actually Tommy as an example. Like Tommy, everybody used to say that Tommy is a great mover. Like, oh, Tommy's a great mover. He's such a And I think that people confuse sometimes, a player that is fast, on the court, that they can move fast around and stuff like that, with being a great mover. Being a great mover has to do a lot with being very efficient, very efficient on the way you move, and the way you get to the ball, and the way you recover and stuff like that. And actually, one of the things that we've been trying to do with Tommy, through all these years, is trying to clean up his movement as much as we can to make him actually a better mover. He's a super fast player. He's a very fast player. He can get to any ball. You go like it's like Deminor. Like they can get to any ball and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that your footwork, is as efficient probably as it should do in terms of cutting angles. Taking time away from your opponent, the way you recover, the way you read the game. The way you move according to the ball that you play. Like if you play a certain ball, like everybody says, oh, like Federer and Novak and stuff like that. How do they do to know where the next ball is going to go? Because they know based on the ball they play which ball is going to come up next. So when the ball comes, they're pretty much there. So you look at Federer and you go, dude, the guy is not moving. How does he do it? You never see him on a rush. You never see Roger on a rush. He's always so smooth, and that is because he is a great mover. He has the ability to, based on not only he moves according to the game, so That's a very interesting topic because I agree with it. I think that there are great movers. Like the best ones are the best movers.
That's the part Federer didn't explain. Thank
No,
you for explaining that. My last question, totally random. What advice do you have for older players, like 40-year-old players like me who want to stay fit? It becomes a battle of trying to stay fit, not get fitter. Do you work with any older players? Some of our listeners are older players who play recreational or ex-players and they want to stay fit. What advice do you
man,
have for
it's
the old
funny that you
men
ask because I
and
think
women?
that they should get fitter. I work. I'm gonna tell you a short story. I work nowadays with a 40-year-old guy. That he's the dad of this 7-year-old kid that I train. That's the story before about. He used to be number one in
Okay.
Hungary. His name is Peter Lever, and he used to be number one in Hungary until he was 18. Unbelievable player, really good player. And then he didn't have the financial, part to be able to play on tour or anything. So he decided to stop playing tennis, and he got into, his job, and he worked like all these years. And like 6, 7 years ago, he has already 3 children and stuff like that. He decides to get back to play tennis, and he's extremely like super disciplined, and he started playing tennis like 2 hours a day, and at some point he started playing tournaments, and he would go play tournaments, and he would compete with these like young college players, but at the end, he'll be like, dude, I'm playing so good, but I get too tired, and
Yeah.
and I lose physically. So a friend of mine that used to train his children told him, hey, why don't you talk to Franco, and I was okay. So I've been giving him like an online programming, for the past a year and 8 months, and the guy is super disciplined, and he does like 5 times a week on his own, and one time a week he takes like a one lesson where we work on all this footwork stuff, and it's crazy how he has changed, his body during this like year and 9 months. Of course, I always say it's not about the program. I think it's about how disciplined the guy is. He's so good, and
Yeah.
he does all his fitness. He does like pretty much like a pro. He goes out there. He does like 3 times a week. He works on his strength. One time a week, he work on some agility and speed and agility. One time a week, he does like footwork with me and coordination, balance, stuff like that. And then one time a week, he will go and do some track work
Mm.
and stuff like that. I'm not saying that you have to do it every day the way he does it, but definitely, there is a
Yeah.
lot of room for improvement. I mean, he lost 30 pounds, 35 pounds, and he put a lot of muscle because he didn't only lose weight, in terms of losing, fat, because he also put a lot of muscle. Um, so I definitely think that, like getting there and trying to do a few times a week of some physical activity is going to help, any player, even adults, like perform better. Sometimes I think we tend to limit ourselves. Oh, I'm older, I can't. And there's a lot of room for improvement. Any age, like there's.
Sign me up. Sign me up. But no, it comes down to. I'm just talking about me here now. Obviously, there's kids now. They're young kids. You're not sleeping as well. Work's busy. So there are excuses there, but sometimes they're real excuses. You're not making them up. And plus, you're more likely to break down as well. I find now, since I didn't play during COVID, so a year and a half not playing, and now trying to get back every time you break down. So, but no, you're right. If you put in the work and you're diligent, you
Yeah.
show up
At
every day.
least, I mean,
That's where
if
the
I would
real
have to say a
gains come
minimum,
from. But
trying to 2 to 3 times a week, like do some strengthening work, with some mobility. Like I would say, like if I would talk about a minimum, like 2 to 3 times a week, where you work on some mobility, soft tissue mobility, prehabs, and core. Trying to address the well, you have to see first what are your specific needs and trying to address the most tennis related like possible
yeah,
injuries, and then some strengthening, because as you mentioned, you enjoy playing tennis. Like most of the people that play when they're like 30 something, 40, they're not doing it because they have to do it. They're not doing it because they're, they have to compete. They do it because they really like it.
mm,
And uh, and when you don't do anything to
yeah,
complement that, to stay healthy, then you might get hurt. There is big chances you might get hurt. So and you
Yeah.
stop being able to do what you really enjoy, and what it is your activity that actually gets you out of work, and it gets your space out of work and stuff like that. So I would definitely like try to target those areas that at least will keep you healthy and being able to perform, okay, a little better. Probably might not make a huge difference in your performance, but it will do a difference for sure. But they will definitely keep you healthy and enjoying the sport that you love and you enjoy.
That is great. I'll take your advice on board, Franco. Thank you very much for jumping on. Love chatting with you,
Thank
and
you so
can't wait
much,
to
man. I
share
really
some more of
appreciate
your
you
great
sharing them, and
videos.
thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, it's been a really nice chat, and looking forward to see you soon, man.